Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. Welcome to the Venture Outfitter. We are streaming from multi-countries. I'm real excited about today's program. Part of what we'll do, I'll go ahead and bring up the slides and get started. Welcome to the Venture Outfitter. Today's Venture Outfitter is all about Norway. But you know, it's not going to necessarily be a story all about Norway. It's actually going to be a lot of it's going to be about my experience of Norway, and I'm going to talk about why I think this is an important place to start. Every business relationship or every business opportunity starts as a relationship. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because I'm kind of excited about the part of the world we're going to be connecting to today. So welcome to the Venture Outfitter. Part of our work today, part of the work that we do around the Venture Outfitter is enable startups and entrepreneurs around the world to get connected, because a lot of times there's ways that we can work together across the world to solve all the world's problems. I said 20 years ago, actually it's almost 20 years that that I started this part of my career. We'll be talking about that in the next few weeks. But 20 years ago, I said, let's just try to figure out all the technologies are coming on. We can go solve all the world's problems. How do we do that? You have to have a large solution set. You got a big problem set. You got to have the large solution set. You want to have a large solution set? You have to be connected around the world. That's all we're here to do around the Venture Outfitter. Thank you to DuoWorks. DuoWorks is a co-working place that's right in the middle of Austin. They're really great because they're a lot more flexible than a place like WeWork about catering to the needs that you might have for co-working or a point of presence or an office, or even if you're international and you need a mailbox and special needs around that. They're really great about that. DuoWorks. Linda Blackman was involved in Venture Force 17, one of our programs many years ago, and she runs DuoWorks. And so thank you for the sponsorship of the studio. I'm going to go through a lot of different things really quick. I'll try to be quick about it. If you have questions, feel free to just, you can message us. Like if you're in the studio audience, you can message us in the chat. But if you want to follow up, and more than likely, I know most of you actually hear us after this fact on the podcast or on YouTube or something like that. But the main thing that I want to do is say, there's a lot of invites that I'm about to go through. The first one on the screen is, if you're not in the TechRanch community site, to start into the TechRanch community site, we have some paid for programs, but to get involved in the community site, it's free. The only thing we ask is that you're an entrepreneur or you're working with entrepreneurs, and that you'll abide by some of our community rules of just, good community efforts. And there are, I know, at least 15 countries represented by the people there. So anyone that's listening that would like to join us, please join us, and it starts at free. You can go use that QR code to get involved. And if you're wondering whether it's at the very end, I'll remind you about this, but you can go to techranch.com/connect. And that will be your invite into the community and other aspects of the TechRanch community and the Venture Outfitter. I'll be speaking on Saturday about digital innovation in healthcare with the Kominsky University, which is in Poland. Real excited about this because you're going to hear a little bit about some of the work that we've done in Norway and some of the first steps for actually making these kind of connections around the world. But if you're interested in being a part of that, it's going to be a closed speech, but I have invites that I can invite you to that conversation. And we're going to be building on the framework that I'm going to hint at during the course of this. It's free. You're welcome to come. It's just it will require an invite. Let me know if you're interested, and we'll get you involved. Also, coming soon for the Venture Outfitter Weekly, we're going to have some conversations around the North American supply chain work. That one of the TechRanch companies is called Venture Connections. And Venture Connections right now is driving a lot of relationships as the supply chains in the United States are shifting. A lot of them are shifting fairly aggressively away from China towards North America. Now, it's also North America and Europe. So our European friends are more than welcome to join us as well. Look for on techranch.com/events. We always publish the events there. We haven't finalized the dates because we're trying to get the speakers all lined up. but that will be coming very soon. And there will be a series as well as we're going to have some free overviews. So Tech Ranch is not associated. We're not part of South by Southwest. Just to be very clear, but a number of you are coming to Austin for part of South by Southwest. And so on this same program at this same time, we will be launching a number of details about, how do you take advantage of South by, how do you take advantage of Austin? Even if you don't have a South by path, what do you do? Or even if you're not going to physically being in Austin, how might you take advantage of that? We'll go over those type of things. I expect we're going to have 3 total programs. Again, I've been waiting on announcing the dates on these just because we've got a lot of people that we're trying to bring in. Now, I myself can tell you, I've been going to South by Southwest Interactive back when it was just a concept. It was a bird of a feather series. And so there will be some interesting things and stuff like that. I noticed in the studio audience, there's some hands raised. I tell you what, if you'd like to say something, type it into the chat. We'll be taking verbalizations. Like, I'll bring you on to be able to speak live when we're in the middle of the after we get to the talk. But if you have something you want to add to this, please just type it into the chat, and I'll make sure that I'll share it. So just switching gears, there'll be a number of other VO weeklies. We do this program every Thursday at 11 o'clock Central Time, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this picture in my life, I always have a hard time remembering the name of the island, but this picture is probably one of the most important pictures in my life that I've ever taken. And the gentleman that's one of our speakers who just was telling me the name of this, Helsan, I think is how he'll correct me a little bit about talking about the island. But as I reflect on this picture that I took looking off the edge of this one island that's part of Norway, I have so many things I want to tell you about. Now, many of you that have known me for a long time know that 2016 and 2017 were extremely difficult years of my life. I was in a car accident in 2016 where a car hit me on my bike, and a lot of other things dropped and failed and blah, 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 lots of gnashing of teeth. And this picture reminded me of a little quiet bit of solace that I just remember. We're having a big dinner for one of the projects we're going to talk about in a few slides. I ran outside because I saw the sky, the sun setting, and I looked into the distance and I was like, wow, okay, everything's okay. And so the story I'm about to tell you about is actually pretty profound from a personal impact it had on me, because it was a process of renewal. In fact, one of the gentlemen that I really wanted to be able to speak today, his name is Bjorn Tor. He's in the middle photo right there. We're on the island. We had the dinner that I was referring to just a little bit ago on the left. And just being out on the water and with the people that were there was a really important thing. I'll go into at some other point. Today's conversation is really not about this one time on the island and all that sort of stuff. I think that story is interesting about how to find renewal, especially for entrepreneurs. But this was a point of renewal, and because of it, I have returned to Kristiansand, Norway, which is on the southwest corner of Norway. Many times, just because this first experience that I had there affected me so deeply that even though there wasn't a lot of other projects and stuff like that, I had to go back. And, I mean, a total of 3 trips, but 3 trips, nevertheless, to this one city that we'll be talking about. But let's step back, and I want to talk a little bit about a framework that I'm putting together that I'm going to be publishing a lot more information about. A lot of people focus on invention, like, they come up with a new technology and they invent it, and it kind of like, it's there. But really, the iPhone or whatever the technology is that you're working on is not interesting until it becomes an innovation. Now, what is the difference between invention and innovation? One of my long-term advisors, Bob Metcalf, the guy who started Ethernet, he would say it this way. He'd say, invention is a flower, whereas innovation is a weed, meaning that innovation like replicates lots of different places. Steve Jobs swiped left on or swiped right on his iPhone in front of a bunch of Apple customers, and all of a sudden people were lining up to go get that. What is it that actually makes that possible, though? What is it that drives that opportunity? Then the answer to that is relationship. Innovation doesn't happen outside of a relationship. Opportunities don't happen outside of relationship. And so a lot of times we forget this when we're building widgets. We'll talk more about it. And then, like I said, on Saturday, I'll go more into the actual framework that I've been thinking about, that, we're going to hear some of the details and the stories of for today. But I want to talk about this notion of relationship. So just for history, that for those of y'all that don't know, TechCrunch has been building these venture bridges. We called it the Innovation Bridge in 2018 and 2019. This was funded by the federal government of Mexico. Many of the entrepreneurs that you might come in contact with, in fact, one of our entrepreneurs from this program, Jorge from Yosis Consulting, is in our studio audience today. Shout out to Jorge. Part of the idea here is to get to those relationships, you actually have to have something that makes that happen. And we were calling it an innovation bridge, which is why this one frame looks like this, but we now call this a venture bridge to drive those type of things. And TechCrunch has been building bridges across all these different countries and other parts of the world. There's actually many different countries that are missing on this, in that in the last 6 years, I've been in 27 different countries. Not all of those countries were full venture bridges, but the relationships drove innovation. And that's part of what we're here to do. Like I said earlier, if you want to solve all the world's problems, you got to have some way of connecting into people to say, hey, what are the problems that we're here to solve? And then what are the solutions? Because a lot of times people have already solved those problems in a different part of the world. For a little bit of history, and we'll talk about this in the future, in the future, like from the standpoint of more about venture bridges, but Mexico, Italy, Russia during 2019, 2020, in response to coronavirus, we built the Venture Outfitter. Was our way of saying, this is a way we're going to do this virtually. We worked with Texas GHS, which is the Texas Global Health Security Initiative, to support more of the stuff that was happening around COVID, and then launched, small, but still interesting and functional and working still today, venture bridges with Hungary and the Czech Republic, Japan, and Central America. And so lots of great things have been happening around this. Now I'm going to hop into some of the programs that if any of you are interested, and I'm not going to have this be a commercial, or not much of a commercial, but my advisor says, hey, Kevin, don't be shy about your products. Sometimes I am. If you're interested and you have an individual company and you're going to be coming to Austin and you want to do what we call U.S. market exploration, we have a program called Concierge Connections. We'll talk more about this in a future meeting, but ask us about it. It's all about getting interactions and support one-on-one during that whole process with a dedicated coach. If you're interested in taking this long-term and you're doing U.S. market entry, not just the U.S. market exploration, we have a program called the Venture Pioneer. And the Venture Pioneer it's the same type of thing that we do for Concierge Connections, but this is a continuing relationship over a longer period of time. What we'll do is in a future interactions, we're going to talk more about that, and we'll hear from some of our Venture Pioneers. As an example, earlier today, I interacted with one of our Venture Pioneers out of Hungary and one of our Venture Pioneers out of the Czech Republic. Tell you more about that in the future, but I want you to be aware of that. And I know that in this program, we haven't talked very much about some of the products that can hop in. And I've gotten that feedback on our podcast. People are like saying, hey, what do you actually do? So more about that soon. But let's hop into some of the stuff to kind of prep about what's been happening concerning Norway. So years ago, that gentleman that I mentioned earlier, you see his photo at the bottom of the screen. His name is Bjorn Tor. He came to Austin with a delegation and said, hey, Kevin, we'd like to start bridging. And by the way, we've got this program that we're going to hear a little bit about more at the University of Agder, which is in Kristiansand, Norway. We're launching an MBA program, and we'll hear some of the statistics from one of the professors from that school in a little bit, because I don't know all the latest. But this was actually what took me to Kristiansand for the very first time. The second thing that's been happening is part of the idea about the Venture Bridge is not just Austin-centric. Part of the Venture Bridge concept is we should be able, if we're focusing on connectivity and we have multiple different places, it's not just supposed to be a hub and spoke, but it should be a lattice work. So even though the map, someone removed, I think Jello must have removed the note on here that says, this is not the correct map of Europe right now, because the Czech Republic and Slovakia shouldn't be on the same slide. But part of the thing that's happening here is, one of the other things that TechCrunch has done, just out of the way that we work, is one of the top companies in the world for innovation is a company out of Norway called Itera. And part of what we help Itera do is get connected into Brno, Czech Republic, where they now have employees that are, in the Czech Republic for expanding the work that they're doing in Norway and other parts of the world. We can go into more story about that, but that's not what it's about today. And for those of you all that know about the Nobel Peace Prize, like a lot of the Nobel Prizes come out of Sweden, but there's one specifically that comes out of Norway called the Peace Prize. Out of that, there's a program or a forum called the Oslo Freedom Forum that I got to participate in, that lots of Austinites got to participate in, as well as part of the whole process. This happens in Norway as well. But today, we're really talking about some of the activities that happen between Kristiansand and Austin. Kristiansand in the southwest part of Norway in Austin. We've invited several different people. Some of the people that, two of the guys that I've gotten to personally work with in the past, Øyvind, who's the International Coordinator and Innovation Advisor for the City of Kristiansand, and then Terry, who is the CEO of CoWorks, which is one of the co-working facilities in Kristiansand. I've been at Terry's, and I always mispronounce his name, and so you'll fix me in a little bit. I think the only time I ever got it right was when we were having drinks together, but and then finally was capturing some of my ability to speak in Norwegian names. We're also going to hear from one of the professors at the University of Agder, Søren, who's a innovation research and business development advisor at the University of Agder. And then from the community of Kristiansand, Morten will be talking a little bit more about the actual city, because the city is bringing a delegation of 30 individuals to South by Southwest to Austin in the next few weeks. So we'll hear from all of them. Then there's a couple of slides that I know that this is one of the slides where talking about the project that we did there in, and I'll get one of my co-conspirators here to actually say what it is, as well as one more slide that talks about the CoWorks. Let me actually go ahead and bring Øyvind and Terry onto into the screen and have you guys actually tell us a little bit about it. First off, why don't y'all do a quick introduction, since I'll stop the slides. Do a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about yourselves and your organizations, and then let's talk a little bit about what's happened, and then we'll get to Morten and Søren in just a second. Øyvind?
Yes, hello, Kevin. Thank you for inviting us to your program. I have a long record of traveling and visiting Austin ever since 2007, actually. And I have introduced number of people and institutions from Kristiansand and from our region to Austin and to the university, to the tech incubator, to TechCrunch, to the city of Austin, also not to forget, because I think that like 3 or 4 mayors from Kristiansand they have visited Austin on several occasions and met with mayors in Austin, even back to Will Wynn and Steve Adler, of course. So we have had a lot of delegations and businesses traveling with us to Austin. And we have had the big pleasure of meeting with you and many others, and introduced you and the university people to other university people from Austin. And we've had the great pleasure of getting to know Mitch Jacobson at the Austin Technology Incubator, and of course IC Squared, and many others. So this has led to several small and perhaps even a little bit bigger also projects between us. And if I remember correctly, Kevin, you and I also tried to work on a tender for collaboration on scale-ups in 2017, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I failed with that one, but that could have been even more interesting, and you could have traveled to Kristiansand a lot more, of course. But that could still be doable in the future.
I look forward to it. Well, the thing about it is, I think I should have said a while ago about Øyvind is he really personally and then professionally has been actually really making the investment of, coming here to Austin, and is definitely an honorary Austinite just by the different times in coming here. I think it's because of the commitment that you've made to building these type of bridges and to building these type of relationships. Like lots of people in Austin know of Øyvind just because of the work that he's done over the years. So kudos to you from a standpoint of that moment that I was talking about that affected my life wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been Øyvind doing the first pioneering steps. So thank you for that.
Thank you,
and Terry, tell us a little bit about CoWorks real quick, just to give us a little bit of perspective. So I got to actually go to his co-working facility, do some presentations and stuff like that. But more generally, tell us a little bit about what you have going on and things like that.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Kevin.
Yeah, great to see you
too. A long
too.
time, yeah. Great seeing you. I run a co-working place in Kristiansand. The population of Kristiansand is about 100,000, so I'm still the only co-working place, private owned, in Kristiansand. So we had some 100 entrepreneurs staying here. At the same time, it's about 50, 60 entrepreneurs, who are at this place, and I run courses, accelerator courses, and yeah. So and I started 7 years ago, 1st of March 2016 actually, and the first trip to Austin was in 2017, I think, or was it? Yeah. So I was lucky to go with Øyvind and a big delegation of 30 people, was it? But that was in head of the oil, wasn't it?
That was for the oil technology conference in Houston.
Right, yeah. And that's actually, I've been to Cyprus West, I think it's 2 times. So I've been 3 times to Austin. But I liked the most the first time when we didn't go to Cyprus West, because Cyprus West was great, but we have a tender of drowning in all, to try to have meeting. Everyone is busy, and yeah. So I'm actually going back in end of March, I think, just after the Cyprus West again this year.
You have a good point. I mean, that's one of the things, those of us that remember South by Southwest, especially when it was just a few hundred people for the interactive, where you could actually get to really meet a lot of people. There is value. I'm not trying to take away anything from that organization. And like I said, we are at arm's length. They're separate, but part of the thing, the really beauty of Austin, both relationally as well as just getting to actually experience it, it's like you're saying, you can't really see that when you have 50,000 people who show up, and there's some difficulties there. So I'm glad you're going to be here. I'm looking forward to having a drink with you here.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's also because I work mainly with startups, not scale-ups. Mainly startups, and they coming to Southwest. I think it's way too early for many of them to travel all the way to Austin and Southwest for the startups. That they maybe even haven't got customers in Norway, and going then to Southwest. It's kind of big for some of them, I think. But again, I love Austin, and yeah, I was in the newspaper in 2018 or something, because I see very much similar that in Kristiansand, Kristiansand with Austin, and especially what Austin was like 7 or 8 years ago, and what you explained, it was a small city in the States. It had a good climate. It has the average payment for a developer, programmer, it was half the price from Silicon Valley. It's exactly much the same. It's easy living. The people in Kristiansand are known in the rest of Norway for easy living. The prices of the houses is cheaper than in the big cities. And all of a sudden, I understand that, you know, Austin was booming, and I see many of the same things, and I hope it's going to happen in Kristiansand the next years. So what I especially noticed in being in Austin, that you have the same storytelling about the city. Everyone tells the same story. It's the 6th Street, isn't it called? The music. Yeah. So it started with the music, and it's the same story of everyone you're talking about in Austin, and that's what I hope will be the same in Kristiansand. But Kristiansand is also actually a music city in Norway. So we have so much similar with you. So I hope to copy Austin in Norway, in Kristiansand. So
it's interesting. Yeah. I got to go to one of those music festivals for one of my trips that was there. I think it's called Punkt or something like that. And it was really, yeah, I still have my T-shirt from that time because, of course, Austin, yeah, so it's interesting. Well, and the thing about Kristiansand as well, and what I want to do is I want to go ahead and why don't we do this? We're going to bring Morten in, who actually works at the City of Kristiansand as well. Joel, if you can, go ahead and bring him in so we can actually see him as well. Kristiansand is got this interesting thing. It's beautiful, you know, very beautiful. Like it's like when I was there during the summer, it's the sort of place that you can just sort of hang out on the beach and really enjoy. There's this, if you rent a bike, or I rented a bike and I went up into the hills, and there's this beautiful area that like looks like it's straight out of Lord of the Rings, or, you know, like from a standpoint of like what I mean specifically is the Hobbit part of Lord of the Rings, which is lush and beautiful and just, you know, really curious and stuff like that. The thing that I'd like to do is, Morten, tell us a little bit more about Kristiansand.
Well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me. And Øyvind and I work. We kind of have the same boss, so we work closely together. And well, Kristiansand also, Taya has talked a bit about Kristiansand and the similarities between Austin and Kristiansand. And I unfortunately haven't been to Austin yet, but I'm looking forward to go to Austin in March. But I've worked in the oil business in National Oil Well Varco and been to Houston several times. So I'm really familiar with Texas. I'm really fond of kind of the connections between Texas and Norway. As Terry said, we are a small city. We're 100 and something thousand inhabitants, and as you see here, we're a coastal city. So we're kind of the southern, the summer city of Norway, if you can call any city of Norway a summer city in a global scale. But with these kind of the place where people come in the summer and go to the beach and have leisure time. But so that's on the one side, and I really appreciate that you kind of have noticed the qualities we have in Kristiansand, because one of the things we have is the short distances between the kind of urban areas of Kristiansand you see behind me here, and also the more nature side. You can just a short walk outside the city center, then you're in what you call the Hobbit area, the Hobbit.
Well, and I use that just because it's so peaceful, and like I said, that experience. And correct me, a while ago, you were right before we went on the air. You had actually shared about the name of the island that we had that one brainstorming process on for the university.
And Nyhellesen you see here is, as you see, it's part of our archipelago just outside our city, but it's also a really a really traditional and historical trading post for our city and our region, all the way back to the 1600s, where this really important trading post. And actually, I don't have there's a building. There is on this pictures, just outside the pictures was there's an old brothel and coffee place where the seamen can have parties in the evenings. So the New Hellesund is an important part of our culture, also for tourists, but also for leisure. And that's kind of one of the qualities with Kristiansand and Norway in general is the kind of closeness from urban areas out to nature. And I think for me, living abroad, I've been living in Southeast Asia and I've kind of worked internationally. The quality we have, and we don't kind of talk about it, and even kind of don't kind of grapple about it ourselves, is that how much we're in nature, not kind of observing nature. I think most of the regions are on a daily basis close to nature and in nature, not only kind of observing from a distance. And I think that's part of our culture and part of our
yeah, there's an expression about that. It's like one of the persons that I had on the screen a while ago, I think she said that there's no bad weather, just bad clothing.
Yeah.
And she hikes daily, or the last time I talked to her, she hikes daily no matter what the weather is. See, what's that expression, since I don't remember exactly how to say it?
Det finnes ikke dårlig vær, bare dårlige klær. It's the Norwegian word, sentence of there's no bad weather, it's only bad clothing. But I think when I helped the University of it's called University of Finance in Madrid with kind of the connection between nature and us and how that impacts our kind of mental being and well-being, but also how important that kind of emotional connection is to how we as decision makers take decisions on behalf, not only on the companies, on the behalf of the company, but also on behalf of the planet. And more people live in urban areas with where we can observe nature in parts where we don't we don't have the emotional connection to nature. And I think that for us, it's just how it is. But for a lot of people in the world, that's not normal.
It's definitely something that, Austinites, we have a sense of because we're very focused on getting out, being active and stuff like that. But even myself, as long as I've been a long-term Austinite, the thing I would say to my colleagues out there is that not just my Norwegian colleagues, but everyone, is one of the things to consider as we're building these relationship bridges and stuff like that is, for me, one of the reasons I kept on going back on those two subsequent trips after the first trip that was the work-related trip was it was a great place to land and still get stuff done. Like there's still a really solid work ethic. It's not like you're going to just pure vacation land, but it's actually very comforting. It's actually, out of the 3 times that I was there, I had to wear a jacket one of the times, but the other 2 times it was fine to just not even, like no other requirements. So, I don't know that everyone knows about that just yet.
Well, we need to wear a jacket most part of the year, but I think so that's kind of the one side is the nature and the leisure time, but I think also the thing we have to kind of build on the narrative and the storytelling about our region is that we're not good enough to talk about is also the more intellectual and competence side, and also the technology side we have, that we are leading not only nationally but also globally, and that's also when historically we have the close connections to Houston and the Texas area on oil and gas, where we as a technology and applied technology from the oil and gas are leading in the world and has.
Yeah, let's use that as an excuse to bring on our engineering professor. Søren is at the University of Agder. UIA is what you'll see in the logo that he has there. He's familiar. So the one gentleman that I really wanted to have on today is in the business school, the Bjorn Tor, the gentleman that I had the photo with earlier. Bjorn had something happen and is unable to join us today because of family needs. But Søren's going to tell us a little tell us about UIA. Tell us more about Agder County itself, or the A stands for Agder County, and Kristiansand, as well as any other details you'd like to share.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thanks. First of all, I want to dismiss that I'm a professor. So I haven't gone down that road, but I worked at the university for more than 16 years now with research. So I'm pretty close to the professors, and I'm mainly working with the strategy, the framework, fundraising, project management, and issues like that. And I've worked with the US connection for a number of years now as well, from both from centrally at the university when you were experiencing these transatlantic science weeks that Norway US partnership attended them, and that was a very good idea. It's unfortunately closed down now. And then I worked some years in the oil and gas cluster, Nordic, where I worked also to create projects, and amongst that projects with US universities. I mentioned that the other day that both we have a relationship with the UT Engineering and the business school as well. We also have a relationship with the Rice University down in Houston, and also especially in Nebraska, Omaha University. They're probably the most eager university to go to Norway student-wise. So there's around 30 students from that university as exchange students in Norway every year. But I just want to build a little bit further on the narrative. I prepared a few slides because I'm basically stepping in for Bjørn Tore, as you said. So just a little testimonial to the things that have happened since 2017, and when Kevin and Bjørn Tore started working together. And the main idea was to create this new entrepreneurship program at university related to the business school. But the cool thing about the program is that you as a student can come from every direction. So you can come both from engineering, you can come from social science or humanities into this program and take a master in sort of like a entrepreneurship and development. So of course they started designing this program in 2017, and I think that was when Kevin was so lucky to visit Ny-Hellesund, and they engaged a lot of students just in the making of it, and they did a lot of workshopping. I think the picture in the middle, they're visiting the garage of one of the old companies in our region that have collected cars for a number of years. It's a very impressive collection. So you were basically seeing a lot of the Kristiansand and South Norway environments. Then when the program was launched, they started, of course, in the first week to familiarize with the shift program, but also the local businesses and industry. And I think here they are visiting, of course, one of the most important industries you need to have, a microbrewery. That was a success for everybody. And then they also checked out some of these, trying to conform the ecosystem, right? And that's basically what we also have been working on. I think a lot of the Norwegian friends here, we are constantly trying to improve our ecosystem. We have a long way to go, I think, still, but we're getting there. And that's what's impressive of, for instance, visiting a city like Austin, is that you have a very well-developed ecosystem for startups and entrepreneurships and scale-ups and so on. That's really inspiring. So in this first weeks where the students are trying to get ideas of what they should focus on, they are visiting we have some labs already mentioned by Morten, and we have both for health and mechatronics. They do sustainatons, connecting to the global challenges. I think this is really catching on in Norway. I don't know about Austin, but it's interesting. It's really fine way for industry to you know, they start on typically Friday afternoon, and then a few executives from the companies will come and tell them about some of the challenges that they're struggling with in bigger companies. And then the students, they basically work for 48 hours at university, at a hotel, at a bar, to develop prototypes and design these solutions. And they are on Sunday afternoon, they invite the executives from companies back, and they present their solutions. And it's I think it's a really interesting way to work. Of course, the students, they need to create companies, or they need to work on other students' companies, and they need to solve problems, right? And they need to design and then create pitches of that. And I think you see some guys here standing on a golf course, and I think they had an idea of how you could repair the grass faster when you were making the divots when you play the golf. And I don't know, I think actually they didn't succeed, because that's a pretty challenging goal to repair these divots. And that's a huge challenge in a lot of golf courses around the world. But it doesn't really matter so much that they don't succeed. But the ones that succeed, they were awarded in a program with Innovation Norway. So they got 100,000 just to, you know, get the company going from being a student company to being a real company. And that's really important that we have this partnership and support from Innovation Norway. And then some of the ideas are pretty ambitious. Here there's some new stories about one of the company will have a new way of cleaning big boats, big ships, to get rid of for instance, you use a lot of chemicals when you're cleaning a ship, and you have some problems with also biodiversity, that you are carrying different types of growing animals, that's biofilms and so on, that stuck to the ship, and it gets it goes into other ecosystems that it needs to be, like invasive species. And you also have companies working with aquaponics. That's also pretty ambitious and advanced technology. You need to succeed there. And then they get, I think they got pretty good traction in the media as well, both regionally but also nationally. And I think this is for us as university, this is very important, because it sends strong signal to new students. That's really one of the main benefits that we as a university have of investing in this education product. But for the students, it's very important for also getting a good work, getting a good position outside maybe being a startup. If you choose not to go down the startup road, you are better equipped to go into bigger companies and so on, and other startups as well. So one of
it's interesting to see the program and stuff like that. Just to tie this back into that narrative we were talking about earlier, right? Part of what we were looking at when myself and Tanya Haran from Tech Ranch landed in Kristiansand was how to build that type of connection, and then find out what was special about Kristiansand, have that be part of the way that this ties into the overall narrative, is how, you know, the specialized knowledge there produces solutions that could only come from there, that then can be connected to the world, right? That's what's beautiful about that. And from what I understand, this was part of what I wanted to ask Bjorn Tor more, but I figured instead of just talking to him on the phone, I'd put him in front of the people. That I think that the first group of students has graduated from the school, and there's like half of them, it was like a number of around 30 individuals graduated with their EMBAs, the entrepreneurial MBAs, and half of them landed at normal jobs, but then half of them actually started companies themselves. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's in that range. They are at least 3 of the companies now living and trying to raise funds and develop their company. So, and then those companies probably have around 10 to 12 of these people from the study program. So they are at least at live now and are still trying to develop. So I think that's a fairly good result from a program like this, and it's but I still think it's a valuable point that you also learn a lot from the master going into established companies. So you have some
exactly. I mean, the companies that
ahead.
don't have entrepreneurial thinking in them right now
Exactly.
are the ones that are going to get selected out. They're not going to be able to make, I mean, there's too many changes that are happening in the world. Companies that don't know how to think entrepreneurially are going to get destroyed by the technologies that are coming on. How many more slides? Do you have a few more slides?
I have, this was the second last one, I think, and this was just that this is probably one of the companies that have gone the longest. They want to create, fish feed for the salmon, the aquaculture.
Yep.
They're now starting to industrialize and build they want to build a factory, and that's very exciting. And this is one of the main challenges in Norway right now, is to build more sustainable fish food for the aquaculture, because you can't use the fish from the wild fish to put into aquaculture. So that doesn't make sense. And the last one is basically supporting what I say, that some of these that don't create a company, they go into interesting jobs. So thank you.
Kevin and Søren, that's also one of the companies we are going to Austin is also working with land-based and like in the ecosystem of land-based fish farming, and in a circular way to see how we can move the fish farming from the ocean onto land, and then utilize side streams in a circular way on other businesses, and connect kind of different value propositions in a circular value chain. That's also one of the things we want to in the delegation and the people when we bring in down to Austin, to have conversations with people in Austin working with in the same industry and in the same sector.
Yeah, I know there's one of the other individuals from Kristiansand that I was really moved by his. I was actually looking really quick to see if I could remember his name. I've interviewed him before. I'm really motivated by. I'm on his newsletter. I'm just really forgetful for names, but given how many people I'm connected to around the world, it's called Many Hands. There's a gentleman that something like Many Hands that's actually using some of those same capabilities for doing fish farming in Africa and bringing protein sources to. I think it's 3 or 4 different countries in Africa. Do you happen to know who that is off the top of your head?
No, not on
yes. I know.
Tell me.
It's Ari Mathisen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard of him.
Yeah, I know. I remember again, one of the other things on one of those trips, the story is just so moving. And people say, hey, it's only 100,000 people in this city. It's 100,000 of the most innovative people, and also to the point that Morten was making earlier, very, very focused on nature and very focused on the world from a standpoint of caring about the world. So yeah, if you would, Øyvind, type his name into the chat, because I want to make sure that I follow up with him, because I'd forgotten as you guys were talking about the fish farming. I'm like, that was one of the most impressive things, because I got to actually find out more on the Africa side about that project, and it showed up through a whole other set of connections that had nothing to do with Norway. So it's interesting how small the world is at times. We have a little bit of time for other comments or questions or anything like that. I found out from Jello that there's some difficulties with one of our streams. So I know that we only have a handful of people that are. We have. The Facebook stream looks like it's having some difficulty. We'll fix that and make sure we upload the video there as well for the people that were wearing. Yeah, Øyvind just mentioned Ari Mathisen. I'll have to make sure that we have him back on the program. Before the Venture Outfitter Weekly program was like it is now, we had him speak years and years ago. Willing Hands is the name of the business. Thank you for that, Øyvind. Any other comments that our esteemed colleagues would like to make, or questions from the audience? Since we're kind of coming up, we have a little bit of time right before we have to close up. I'm just wondering if
since we're coming in the beginning of March, we're coming in 25-30 people to Austin, and I had a meeting with all the people on earlier this week, and they're really looking forward to go down to Austin, and as we started this conversation, they're going to be crowded, and a lot of it's 6 p.m. so the lights in the office just turns off. To say, you have to wave a couple of times every 5 minutes, but no. Even if the South by Southwest will be crowded and a lot of people, I think we are really looking forward to going coming down, and we're kind of working now to see how we can make most value and get most value creation out of those days. And as I told you earlier, Kevin, we are 4 or 5 people going from Austin to Houston afterwards to visit some of the innovation environments there, regarding facilitating in the near future here in Kristiansand, an arena for collaboration between sectors that traditionally don't talk to each other. And for me, working from both, I worked in health and also in oil and tech, and there's a lot of brilliant people, but the more brilliant you get, the less people you talk to, because you spend all your kind of hours a day kind of nerding on what you're working on, and to trying to facilitate an arena where my kind of surgeons can talk to people from tech business and other industries. I think that will also our hypothesis is that will increase and create more innovation, and both innovation ability but also innovation capacity here in the region. And
that's exactly what I was saying, is like the whole idea about the whole idea about these kind of connections back and forth. Part of, you can invent something. It's like you're saying, you can invent something, the scientist or the engineer at the lab bench that invents something, but if you don't get them connected, it doesn't take off, and it doesn't build that innovation capacity that we're talking about. Yeah. So, but by the way, that's what your local friendly tech ranch is here to support. And I say that not only to my colleagues from Norway, but also that's partially what, the benefit that I've had in my career is being so very connected to the world. I'm a super connector. Like in Austin, I've had quite literally more than 10,000 people go through one of my programs, not my events. It's many more if you count people at events, but it's people in programs. And the thing that I'm learning is to start taking that whole process and making it more open to people. And so we'll be working with Morten. And there was a question from Paul in the chat that said, how can we find out more of the Norwegian folks online? What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each one of the individuals from my colleagues, if you can type in your URLs into the chat. What Jello will do is part of the show notes for this, and we'll do this both on our internal community site, as well as the public facing part of this as well, is we'll make sure that all the connection points are there. The other question that Paul had asked earlier that I want to make sure is an important question to ask is, will Tech Ranch be doing some things during the period of time that South by Southwest is running? And the answer is yes. We will be having some community events. We have some negotiation going on with a couple of different companies here in town. There's 2 main groups, and since we're running our core programs, 2 other groups in town have contracted with us to help other entrepreneurs land into or connect into U.S. market entry, U.S. market exploration. And we will do an event here. Morten and I have not gotten to actually finalize the connection times of where, if you want to interact with the Norwegians that are coming from Kristiansand, to surface that, we'll be following up very soon. And it's just mainly been that many of you know that my schedule has been kind of awkward over the last few weeks, just because of some of the difficulties that happened in my personal life. But part of what we'll do is make sure that that's there, because, and in the community site as well, there will be a place to really surface these type of interactions. I'll make sure that Jello and I will make sure that there's an area that there's going to be a thread that for all the actual interactions that happen there, that's better behind a slight wall, instead of just totally out in the open. It's a very, very low wall, but it's like, it'll be in our community.techranch.com site. There will be at least one post that have all these gentlemen copied on, that if you have questions and follow up and you want to get a little bit more interactive about it, you can. I find that that's a little bit easier for everyone, just because otherwise my mailbox gets inundated by a lot of people saying, hey, I want to meet those guys. And then we can't do it as collaboratively. I become a hub and spoke versus versus your host. I'd rather be your host, helping connect everyone in and stuff like that. I noticed that now we have a bunch of the URLs that are there. For those of you all that are watching this on a streaming program, or that are listening to this, whether on a podcast or on YouTube, we'll make sure that that information is there. And for anyone that really like to be a part of the collaboration conversation, that will happen behind community.techranch.com. You won't have to pay something to be a part of that conversation. It's just easier for us to structure that way, and allows things to scale from there. I want to do a quick shout out to two of the gentlemen that I just met yesterday. One of them is Brad Englert, and the other one is Buck Hollister. We're going to have them come speak at some point in the future. Brad is the former CIO of the University of Texas, and so has been doing some really interesting things from that standpoint. And so, Brad, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you coming into the studio audience. And Buck as well. Buck is an attorney who also is an accountant that does a lot of work for international, helping international companies land into Austin. We'll have him come on and talk about some of the stories and experiences, as well as how to do this, because there's so many different people that are actually saying, hey, we want to connect in, and we realize that Austin's a better place to connect into than other parts of the world. So I don't know if either one of y'all wanted to say like a 15-second thing. I'll ask Jello to put you on the stage with me really quick right before we close up.
Sure, that's no problem. I'm happy to go and give a brief blurb. It was a great presentation today, by the way, Kevin. Really enjoyed learning more about Norway and some additional insights about the startups and the universities. I really like how you went and tied everything together and wove it, and looking forward to participating in future events and seeing future podcasts as you unroll them this year.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining. And we're going to get Russ Finney, who also is one of the other gentlemen that joined us yesterday. And Brad, thank you for being here as well. Did I get it right? Was it the CIO of the University of Texas system, or University of Texas?
No, it's Chief Information Officer at the main campus. So
Main campus, got it. Well,
And
yeah,
I did that for about 8 years.
Yeah, quite a background in information systems. So thank you for that. And since I go to, I'm a Texas alumni, which for those of y'all that know what this sign is, means that it's a Longhorn, right? It's like another aspect of Texas. Thank y'all for being here today. I look forward to having you guys again soon. So
thank you.
Cool. Well, okay. Well, I tell you what, we're coming to the end of our time together. I am going to go ahead and share my screen again. I want to make sure that I say to our speakers that joined us from Kristiansand, first and foremost, actually, I wish we had a simple way of keeping people on the screen and swapping them in and out and stuff like that. Actually, Jello, go ahead and put them all on the screen with me, and I'll take us off the slides just to say, first and foremost, thank you all for today. The thing I'm saying about your city, about how, Bjorn Tor invited me to this one project that was part of the University of Agder. And because of the timing, it had such a profound impact on me. Like, if you could see the background screen of my Mac right here, the background screen is that same photo earlier. That's why I'm like, oh, okay, I got to talk about this. Because part of the thing about connecting into a part of the world is if you start knowing something about the soul of that part of the world, then the connection is so simple. So to the four of you, thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm looking forward to receiving the delegation. Øyvind, since you're the original gangster from, or as we use the language we'd use from Austin, is the OG, the original gangster from Kristiansand. Thank you to your commitment to building bridges and building relationships. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon and breaking bread, having a beer or whatever appropriate. But thank you, gentlemen, for your time today, and we will we'll definitely be doing more activities together. If nothing else, even if we don't find the right project together, I'm going back to Kristiansand. I don't know about you guys, but it's had that type of impact at a time that that first trip behest that I went back 2 more times on top of that, just because of how it affected me in a really deep level. So thank you all. And and if there is anything that you guys would like to make sure is shared on top of the show notes that we have, feel free to leverage that. I know, Morten, you might have some details that you'd like to share about the delegation. We'll have that place on the inside of the community site to do that with. That would be great. So, all right, well, for everyone else, as we wrap up for today, if you're not on our newsletter, if you're not in our community, if you'd like to actually be listed as one of our mentors are entrepreneurs that have scar tissue to donate to other people. If you'd like to be in our country manager program, our country manager program is, you might say, hey, this connectivity that we see happening with Kristiansand that we talked about last week, with Chile, we've certainly talked about in Mexico a bunch of times, and a lot of the different places we talked about with Uzbekistan not too long ago. If you're interested in kind of supporting those type of connections, there is a place on this URL to sign up, and we don't do a lot of activity on that. It's flipped. It's more of, as you see the opportunity on your side to say, hey, the following thing is significant that's happening in Kristiansand. The role that we see Øyvind doing in this informal way that he started, that now has become formal. If you have something you'd like to do and share and all that sort of stuff, please do so. And the idea about the country manager, since I just got a question about that behind the scenes, we do have a previous Venture Outfitter weekly that you can go through on kind of expectations and the basic frameworks. There's 3 different levels of how we get involved, a bunch of different examples we can share. But the main idea is, it's really clear that in the future that's coming, in the age of the internet, the people that are most connected are the ones that are going to win. You can invent all day long, but if you don't connect into relationships that create connectivity around the world, innovation doesn't occur and the product goes nowhere. So it's not just about that. And so it is the people that are building those relationships. We're here to help you on that. That being said, there's lots of different other ways of connecting that are on that URL. Let me just switch to my last slide. For anyone that's still here, I'd love to have the studio audience stick around for a little bit before we close. I will say some things. So just let me signal to you, because I forgot to tell you at the very beginning that you don't have to hop off even after we stop streaming. But it's my honor to be a part of a group and community of entrepreneurs that are changing the world for the better, that are driven by vision and values. So let's go change the world for the better together. Thank you all. We'll see you next